Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Six Star Business Podcast. Hi, Pete.
Hey, Av, how's it going, man? Why did I do that in a faux American accent? Goodness me,
I don't know.
I should be shot.
Luckily, I'm too far away for the bullet to reach me, so that's totally fine. But I know that your bullets are made of love anyway, so even if you did shoot me, I'd be quite happy. So anyway.
Yeah. So I noticed that our listeners can't see it, but you're wearing slightly warmer clothing than usual.
I am.
Season's turning, obviously.
Season's turning. Funnily enough, today we had one of those kind of weird, out of the ordinary days where it didn't get above like 15.5 degrees, and it's been pouring rain all day. And tomorrow I think it'll be up above 20, but it's just been cold. It's been a cold day.
So I just to make you feel better,
Yes.
This morning I went out for my run and it was 3 degrees.
I feel so much better.
Like your temperature is 5 times the temperature here. I mean, to be fair though, it is getting warmer. Spring is definitely in the air. Although the trouble with spring in the UK is that you kind of get it, and it's like, is it spring? Is it not spring? Is it spring? Oh, then it's summer. and then we have that for a couple of days. No, I do it injustice. You know, May is normally pretty good actually, and then July's nice and warm as well. But
that's good.
yes. Anyway, well, you know, we can't have a conversation. I'm a Brit, so we can't have a conversation without talking about the weather. That's the weather done. But people aren't. Our listeners aren't here to hear us rabbiting on about the weather. They want to know about the guests that we've got on this episode. Who are they, Av?
Well, we have Dave Blanchard and James Burkitt, and from two different sides of the globe. Dave is actually from North America. Quite frankly, yeah, quite literally. Is it Oregon? Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah.
Yep.
West coast of North America to east coast of Australia.
Yes, and James is in Queensland. What's really amazing about this one for our listeners, Dave used to work for what he terms a six-star business, global business, and that would be Hewlett Packard. And James, interestingly, runs a training business, and over the years he's supplied and purchased a lot of equipment, of course, and he was a big customer of Hewlett Packard, and actually validated that and said it was a six-star experience working with Hewlett Packard.
Yeah, and I thought the other thing that was interesting about that part of the conversation was, yeah, you know, you're a small business owner, I'm a small business owner. We have had a sort of a mixture of both, but I think we are tending towards the smaller business owner, I guess, just a function of the circles that we move in, I guess, apart from anything else. So it was really interesting to me to hear that, you know, the concepts that we're discussing and you know, with ourselves and with our guests, that properly applied and implemented actually can affect a huge global organization and enable them to be a six-star, you know, across the board. It's not just for the smaller business where you can perhaps have a more innate sense of, it's about the humans because I know everybody that's in my business, so it's easy to be caring and whatever. It's like, no, six-star business is six-star business, and it can happen at scale. So it'd be great to explore that. It'd be great to explore that more with more guests, I think.
I agree. I think that would be fascinating. And that's a great segue into, I guess, the core of this episode, which you're going to love. And it really comes down to the heart of the business, heart of the people running the business. And that's what Dave and James bring to us. So without further ado, enjoy the episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Six Star Business Podcast. It's great to be here. Great to be with you. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Pete Denny Dixon, and I am joined as ever by my other co-host, who is
Evelyn Clark. Thank you, Pete.
How are you, Av? Has it stopped raining yet?
You know what? It has stopped raining for the first time in about 2 weeks. The sun is shining. I believe it's going to be a warm day today.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's always the best way to start the day when the sun shines. I just wish I knew what that was like.
Just come and visit.
Oh God, I can't wait for lockdown to finish. I will be I'll be on a plane as soon as I can. So we are joined, as ever on every episode, by two guests who've put their hand up and said that they would like to join the conversation about what it takes to create a six-star business. And this week we're joined by two friends of ours, James Burkitt and Dave Blanchard. G'day, guys.
Hello.
G'day, Pete. G'day, Evelyn.
Hello.
Dave, why don't you start off just by telling our listeners a little bit about who Dave is and what he is, and we'll just get the ball rolling with you.
Okay, great. So I'm Dave Blanchard. I'm a fractional chief marketing officer. So I help businesses that don't have anyone in that marketing leadership seat, but want to grow significantly and therefore need that marketing leadership. I have been a marketer for all of my career, which is longer than I care to admit. That means I have a lot of experience. And I actually work with a group of folks with an organization called Your CMO. There's 10 of us, fractional chief marketing officers. And one of the really cool things is that we get to pool our experience on the benefit to the benefit of our clients. And we do a lot of sort of brainstorming and group problem solving. But so I, a little bit personal, on the personal note, I'm looking forward very much to visiting Yosemite with my son in 2 weeks. So hopefully everything will stay open. We'll be able to do that.
Wonderful. Where are you based, Dave?
What's that?
Whereabouts are you based?
Oh, yes. I am in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, in Washington State, near Portland, Oregon.
Lovely. Lovely.
And it's
a beautiful part of the world,
which is amazing for our part of the world as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
James, welcome. How are you and who are you?
Hi, Pete. Thanks very much. So James Burkitt. I've been involved for the last probably 30 years plus in the training industry. So initially in the computer software training for end users, and then more recently in the short courses that corporate use, etc., for their businesses. I'm married. My wife is involved in the business, as is my son, and he's based in Adelaide. I'm based in Brisbane, as Australia. So perhaps Evelyn and I are just up the road from each other in many respects. Our business has always been driven around the concept of engaging people in training, engaging them personally in training, rather than if you like, almost a detached third party through online. And we continue to do that today through COVID by using an online platform. And we've been really revamping our business quite considerably. That's really all about us. As I said, my son's involved in it. He's in Adelaide, and so we visit him from time to time, as is recently. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing your insights about how you've dealt with transitioning your business through COVID and where six-star business principles come into that. And Dave, also interested that this episode with you, it's quite fun, kind of the serendipity, because there's an element of randomness in who's involved in the conversation and where they come in the order of the episodes. And just last week we had Rob Drummond, who's the first real kind of marketer, would you say? Kind of like all the previous conversations have been very much about what it takes to create a six-star experience actually inside the business. And last week we started to look at the fact that that 6-star experience of a business actually needs to start before somebody becomes a client. So it'd be interesting to get your insights on that, Dave. But without putting words into either of your mouths, we found and have found that everyone that's come on to the show and to the podcast has their own reasons for being here. And I'm just really interested at the start of every episode just to find out what it is about the concept, if you like, or the idea of a 6-star business, that when you first heard that, what was it about that kind of held your interest for long enough to kind of want to give up an hour of your day, especially when the sun's shining, James, to spend it with us to talk about it. So Dave, do you want to go first?
First of all, I think it's clever because it's a little bit like I think it was it the movie Spinal Tap where they had 11 on the amplifier.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's a reference to that, but it seemed like a 5-star business is sort of the gold standard, and to be a 6-star business sort of exceeds that. And so I like the ambition of it, and I think really the world needs 6-star businesses because those are the ones that really serve their customers well, that move the world forward, that serve their employees well, and their communities well, and do it in an ethical way. And so those are things that resonate with me, and so I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of those things. Great.
There's a few big, broad brushstrokes there, which we'll be able to delve into. Evelyn's smiling, going, "Yes, I can't wait." It's good. James, what about you? What was it about 6-star that kind of grabbed your attention?
Yeah, along similar lines in the sense that 6-star, and I've heard people even refer to particular businesses or particular situations as 7-star. Would you believe? So I mean, that's really getting up there.
So maybe we set our sights too low.
But I agree with Dave. To me, a 6-star business is very much about the people, and it's as I make reference all the time. You can't buy and sell people. You can buy and sell businesses and equipment and things like that, but it's the people that make it work, and it's the attitudes, the values that go along with that through that organisation, and through the leadership of that organisation. That's what really, really interests me, and it's I guess that's what I've really based our business around all these years, is about the people, rather than the process of training and putting something online and saying, yeah, just go away and do that. It's the people and having that interaction, making that work. So that's what I love about 6-star.
So Av, just in light of hearing where James and Dave were that sort of got them to this conversation right here, right now, what do you want to ask either of them or both of them to set us off the top of the roller coaster?
So something that Dave said was the world needs 6-star businesses because they will move the world forward, serve the communities well, and do it in an ethical way. And I would love to start there, if that's okay. What do you mean by that? Do you want to explain to me what that means to serve the communities well, do it in an ethical way, and anything else?
So I believe business exists for the good of the community. Businesses don't exist for the good of the people who run the business or even the people who are in the business. The reason why humans invented businesses was to make things better. And so businesses serve a function in that, but it's the best businesses, I think, are outwardly focused and not inwardly focused. So I think that's an aspect of it, because to me, there's a big part of serving your customers well, and in order to do that, you need to have a servant heart. And so that's a big part of what I think drives entrepreneurs and people in 6-star businesses, and not just small businesses, but large businesses. I was fortunate enough to spend the first part of my career in what I consider to be a 6-star business that had reached, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, and was continually, innovating in ways that touch millions and millions and millions of people's lives still every day. And so, that was something exciting to be a part of.
What was that? Just for the sake of our listeners, what was that business, and why would you regard it as 6-star? What was it about it that made it 6-star?
Well, the business was Hewlett Packard, or HP, and what made it 6-star? I guess there were several things, but one was the culture inside the company. It was a culture of excellence and a culture of integrity, and really the HP way was something that was kind of vaunted at the time. It was like the way we did things. And it was a high trust culture. And so you were expected to sort of take ownership of your job and even beyond that. And that was kind of that was really the expectation. I mean, you didn't have a choice. That's just the way things were done. There's a big emphasis on contribution. What are we contributing? What are we making for, what are we bringing to the world? In fact, there was, I think it was Hewlett or Packard that would say that profit is a measure of contribution. It's not the goal. It's the score that tells you if you're achieving the goal, but the goal is contribution. And so that was an important, I think, distinction. And another thing that was present in the culture was the kind of the order of priority of things. There, the way that it was spoken about was that if you took care of your people would take care of your customers, and if you took care of your customers will take care of your shareholders. And in fact, I think I recently heard Richard Branson or someone say something very similar to that. So this is something that's that's been proven again and again and again. And I guess I would also had the opportunity to see that change, and then the culture changed through a change of leadership. And unfortunately, the company is no longer in the position of leadership that it was in, and a lot of it had to do with the change in cultural values.
That's awesome and very
conversation stopper.
No, I would like to give space to process after insightful contribution. Go on, Av, sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's so much in there, and I love that you went through the experience of the 6-star, and then the change of leadership, and then the dive, the shift. So you got to see that.
But it's interesting. I had through my partner Yolanda had an experience with HP in Melbourne many years ago, and you're very, very right. They were a fabulous company to work with, absolutely fabulous. And the work that we did with them, creating training materials and all sorts of things for them, and there was no question. It was like this is the role. Do the role. They absolutely culturally, when we went there, we were part of their family. We were just totally part of that HP group. It was just wonderful. They're a really great cultural company.
Yeah, and
it's funny. You can walk in the door of organisations, and you can almost smell it.
That's true.
Quite often,
Yeah, that's really true. And they were HP was known for the sales force getting to the point where they realized, what we have to offer isn't the right thing for you. You should buy this from the competitor. And that did amazing things to develop trust, because they the customers knew that we weren't just interested in making a buck off them, but we were interested in having them solve the problem that they need to solve, whether that was our product or somebody else's product. And I think that shows the kind of values that that exist in a six-star company.
In your experience, kind of day to day going about life, would you say that engaging with businesses, that engaging with a six-star business is more common or less common? Is it the exception or is it the rule?
Good question. James, you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's more the exception. I think the unfortunate thing is that most organisations see themselves as being working for the good of the organisation, and that's actually diametrically opposed, I would suggest, to what we're talking about. So they see themselves as an example. They go into an area and they put a proposal down. Let's build whatever. Now the local community don't want that, so they go ahead and do it anyway. Right. Now, and I'm not saying, and over the next 5 years or 10 years, yes, they make profits and it becomes part of the norm and whatever. But the reality is, the local community really didn't want it. Now, my view is, you look at six-star businesses, and they're never in those areas. They're never in those situations because they get the bit of pushback to begin with, and they just don't proceed. They go and look somewhere else for the opportunities. I very much agree with Dave. I've read the quotes and whatever else. I've read a couple of Branson books. And he's very much of the attitude that within the organisation there are fabulous people in every organisation, and my personal view is that people grow with organisations, grow with companies. So it's almost like we're all in this bubble together, but some of us are stretching the bubble because we're lagging. And some are stretching the bubble because we're pushing the bubble forward or sideways or whatever the case may be. Now, my belief has always been that those people who are lagging, we've got to help them to actually move out of the bubble in many respects. Help them see that, you know what, the bubble's moving faster than you are. So really you need to go and find your place. And vice versa, there are people who are pushing us forward, and we need to recognise that they help them move out of the bubble as well, for that matter, because as an organisation, we're not moving at their pace, and they're just going to get totally frustrated with us in time. So we've actually gone through that process over the years in helping people move in and out of the bubbles of our bubble, which is our business. Because our business is a community for the good of the people in that community and all of the people who we serve primarily.
So talking of bubbles, and just to make sure that we don't just stay in an echo chamber. I know that there'll be many people that could be in a conversation like this that would vehemently disagree with what's being said, that businesses exist to increase value for the shareholders, for the owners of the company. So as none of those people are here, I'm going to speak on their behalf and say surely that is the purpose of a business, is that you have owners of a business, and the function of a business is to increase the value for those owners who've taken the risk to invest whatever capital they have. What would you say to that?
That's
either of you, anyone?
Fairly new idea. That's something that came into popularity with Milton Friedman in the Chicago School of Business. But prior to him, that actually was not what people believed about businesses. And Jack Welch was one of his big followers, and GE certainly did well for a long time. But again, where's GE now? They've sold off a number of their businesses, and so it works for a time. I just recently read Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game, and his claim is that business is an infinite game and not a finite game. A finite game has rules and an ending and a beginning, and business never ends. You're always opportunities to get better and improve. And you can play the game. You can play the game of business as a finite game and keep the score and who's winning and who's got the most money and who's got the most power. But it only lasts for a certain time, and it doesn't stand up to competition that's playing an infinite game. Because I'm sorry, just let me.
Sorry.
But one of the things about that is that people are willing to sacrifice for the good of a company who's playing an infinite game and playing with those values. That was one of the things at HP. When business was bad, rather than laying people off, they asked everyone to take one day off every 2 weeks and a 20% cut or 10 or 20% cut in salary. And so the pain was shared, and that was a way, and people were eager to do that. In fact, most of us worked anyway, but because people were willing to sacrifice their personal time for the good of the corporation. And if you're in an organization that doesn't have those kinds of values, people just won't.
Yeah, it's transcending the values of we're doing this purely for the profit to we're doing this for the good of the community, be that the wider community or be that the community of the organisation who is serving the wider community.
Mm-hmm.
So how difficult do you think it is then for a smaller startup, someone in the early stages, say the first 5 years of business, to do to be and live the way what you're describing? Because I'm hearing the example of HP, very large organization. I'm not sure of its history or how long it took to get to that place, but I wonder how much more difficult it is for a smaller micro or a small business startup.
I actually think it's easier, and the reason it's easier is because once you go public, you're now beholden to people who are interested only in money. Wall Street has one thing that they value, and that's money. That's what's driven us to short-term, quarterly focus and all those things that are kind of have bad unintended consequences. But if you're a privately held business, you're free to do what you feel is the right thing, as opposed to the profitable thing. And if you have even venture capitalists, even when you start giving away control to people that are in it for the money, you start to a different set of values starts to get imposed. So I would argue that it's easier if you're privately held and can call the shots and set your own values.
It sounds so easy when we have these conversations, and it would be good to. It's always good to have opposing views, and at the moment, I guess partly a function because we're just getting started, so initial guests are known to us, and over the course of time, I'm sure the serendipity and random connections will throw up different kind of conversations, but it does sound easy in these conversations to have a 6-star business. Just create an environment of trust and treat people well, and go above and beyond, and great. You shoot for the stars, and you hit the moon. So it's obviously not easy, because otherwise James wouldn't have answered in a way that I think is congruent with most people I'll ask the question of, is that a 6-star business is the exception that proves the rule. So what's missing? Why aren't more businesses 6-star, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, I would suggest that in many things we go through life in a competition phase. Everything is about competing. why isn't it more about actually doing our very best for that community, and the results then come from that? So rather than competing, why not contributing from that point of view? So it's not about, it shouldn't be about competing. I've got this widget, except in extreme cases where I've got a widget which is worth XYZ and I need to cut price and whatever. But almost everything we do in life is about competing for ASAT scores in school, competing for whatever. Go to an alumni event and walk around the room and talk to a few people. Believe me, the undertone is very much about, I'm doing this career. Oh, you're only doing what? It's an appalling situation, and again, it's a competition, be it in the community or be it in politics or be it across pay packets, so to speak, even corporates. The people earning the big bucks, for argument's sake. So there seems to be this idea of competition all the time, whereas I think what we're talking about is community and serving communities rather than competing in communities. Now, hopefully that's a bit more radical for you.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things in there, but one thing I just want to ask and speak to is that sounds right. It sounds radical, but it sounds good in theory. But how do we move from words and theory to action? Why is that the way it is, and what can be done to make that reality different?
Okay.
Dave?
No, I was just going to say, life is not a competition. Life is about a journey through life, and at the end of it all, we're all going to end up in the same place, be it in different parts of the globe, but we're all going to end up the same. So at the end of the day, it's what the contribution is through that life. So it's not a competition; it's simply a journey, and the influence that I have on the people and the lives that I touch along the way is my contribution in whatever way I touch them. So if from an attitudinal point of view, if that were more the cultural attitude, I think we'd be in a far better place.
Well, and I think you put your finger on why it's hard. We live in a culture that celebrates power, money, fame, consumption. And so those are the messages that we get in social media, on television, in movies. And so we are misled, if you will, by the values of the culture that we live in. And we don't even know we're in that culture. It's like a fish in water. We're swimming through it all the time. We're bringing it in and, expelling it, and just, we're immersed in it. And so it takes a certain level of consciousness and active will to go against that, because the natural flow is to go with that. That's what's out there, informing our decisions and how we live our life. So I think, choosing different role models, paying attention to different people, ignoring some other things, blocking other things out of your life is part of how do we make this happen.
As Woodrow Wilson said, the man who swims against the stream knows the strength of it. I think there's an aspect in that of what you're just talking to there, that there is a stream, a raging river that's flowing, and it's going to take big actions to overcome that. Is it a fool's errand, do you think? And sorry, Av, were you going to talk to something? Were you going to?
Oh, I was just going to ask. Yeah, thanks. From what both of you just said, it feels to me like you're saying that it's the path of less traveled. It's going against the grain. It's stepping out and focusing in a different way. But if so few businesses are 6-star, what we're saying is it takes a certain kind of person very different from the norm, someone who is not part of the mainstream thinking, someone who is not, swept away with that current of belief systems and societal programming. Would that be correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Dave, I want. Sorry, James.
I was going to say a fellow who I've read a couple of things about him, and I don't know a huge amount, is a fellow called Ricardo Semler from Brazil, who is one of those people who looked at the way of transforming business to a very open platform, very open within businesses. And in one of his TED talks about an organisation had thousands of employees, and they had 2 HR people, one of who was retiring and not to be replaced, because everything was extremely open. Everything on their intranet was published. Salaries, overtime, pay rates, everything, targets, the works. Everybody knew everything about everybody else within that organisation. They had their own tasks to do. They had their own goals to achieve, but everything was very, very transparent. And I think that's the core. If we take that as an example into the general what's going on in business, how many businesses, and if you look at the political systems or whatever the case may be, is everything is so non-transparent. Let me as an example, it's if you ask, in most corporates, and I'm one of these people who probably would never get a job in a corporate area, for the simple reason that I expect the answers. If I was to ask Peter, my boss, as an example, if you were, what's such and such, and you were to say, well, that's not for you to know, I'm sorry. It is for me to know because I've asked the question.
Dave, I'm wondering. I took your advice and I bought the Fourth Economy the other day that's arrived, and just there's something in the back of my mind, itch is being scratched in what you've told me about your reading of that book. If this is the kind of societal shift that needs to happen for that economy, does that make sense? I don't want to go down a tangent if it's going to distract, but if it is relevant, if partly, do you kind of just want to share a bit about that?
Well, the thesis of the book is that Western civilization has gone through 3 economies, and the progress from one to the next has been driven by what's scarce at the time. So what was scarce in the 1300s was land. And so all of the invention, and they make a big point about distinguishing between technological innovation and social innovation. But all of the innovations of both kinds were aimed at overcoming the limit of land. And so you had things like nation states evolve, because nation states are really good at conquering land. They can have they can tax, they can have standing armies, they can protect the land, and they're also good at trading because they can have navies that protect trade routes and armies that protect trade routes and things like that. And so then once that was no longer, once they kind of had land figured out and productive, then the economy shifted to capital. And so the capital became the limit. So being able to apply machines to the land, extract things, manufacture things, became the limit to the growth of the economy. And then once we had capital in place, then knowledge became the limiter. And so in the 1900s, you could get ahead by investing in your own knowledge, by going to college, becoming a knowledge worker. And that we're now seeing that having diminishing returns, and kids are going to college and leaving with debt and no job, because that investment in knowledge work is diminishing returns. So the thesis is that the next economy will be based on people who can put the land and the capital and the knowledge together in new and innovative ways, and that's going to be the entrepreneurial society. So entrepreneurialism is what's scarce, and just like it was hard to be a knowledge worker in 1900, it's hard to be an entrepreneur in 2020. But 100 years from now, it will be much easier and much more common.
So maybe there's this 6-star business movement is coming up, and I know we're not unique in talking about these sort of things. All great ideas occur in many places at the same time. There are several people working on the telephone and several people inventing the light bulb and whatever. But possibly the 6-star business movement aligning with other people of similar purpose is coming at a time to bring that sort of entrepreneurial economy to fruition, but in the right way, with the right kind of leadership and values and everything that we've talked about and will continue to talk about in terms of being 6-star.
Yeah, and I was going to say that I think another influence is the way businesses have been structured. Businesses were structured 100 years ago in hierarchies because that was efficient. So if you had a factory, you had a bunch of people. I've been to Lowell, Massachusetts, which is where the Industrial Revolution started in the United States in textiles. And they had these huge buildings with lots of looms, and women would stand in front of these things for 12 hours or 18 hours a day and weave cloth. That was very efficient. And there's, 1 or 2 people at the top. So, but a pyramid by its nature has scarcity, right? So you talk about competition. In order to get ahead, somebody had to fall behind. Somebody had to, the pie did not get bigger. Well, if the company did, but if you were going to get ahead, if you were going to get to that top spot, you had to step on somebody. That's the cliche: step on somebody else's hands while you're climbing the ladder. I think, maybe this is just my hope more, but I believe that as we go forward, organizations will be flatter and they'll be more fluid, and there will be and we won't have the disparity between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. We'll all share more equally in the rewards of whatever it is we're producing together. I think that the whole communist capitalist conversation is a conversation for 100 years ago. Going back to it was when capital was scarce. Who owned the capital?
Yep.
Well, now
Yep.
that's not scarce anymore. So we're going to move on to a whole other discussion with probably 2 completely different poles that will emerge. And I'm not even smart enough to say what they are, but I think we need to be looking forward and figuring out what the dialogue is going to be about.
I like looking forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just as you've been kind of, sat there and kind of listening to what was going on, and also looking at the clock and realizing that yet again we've whizzed through 45, 50 minutes conversation without even realizing it. Any final thoughts, or probably best not to ask a question now, because that'll take us over time. But just to kind of bring it in.
Sure. I just want to reflect on a couple of things that both Dave and James said and how they interrelate. Dave, you said a couple of minutes ago that you would like to see in the future companies having these flatter structures, so a shorter distance between the top and the bottom. And James was talking about the need for transparency, and that the organizations that have that total transparency creates the trust, creates that cultural environment. And it's, yes, we're talking large organizations, but they can also be small. And it plays into something that an economist friend of mine was talking about recently, that we're at the start of another cycle economically, and we've moved into an era of purpose. Okay, the world has actually moved into an era of purpose, and in doing that, in being in that space, the leader that owns their purpose then has a direct link to the people at the bottom of that flatter structure organization, where all of that organization is aligned with that purpose, and then there is transparency and communication and shared values, and everyone's working to a similar cause. And going back to the top of the conversation, which when you both talked about how the 6-star business is about, not about profit, but it's about what are we contributing. And if we come back and we look at it from a purpose perspective, that is all about what is it that we want to contribute to the world, to our community. So I feel like we've come full circle.
Amen.
And it's really heartwarming and really exciting.
We've come full circle, but it's like that bit in the roller coaster, where you're going forward,
Yeah.
you're going up and down at the same time. It's like that helix. We've done a full circle, but we've gone forward at the same time. Sorry, no, we started on the roller coaster, so we've got to finish. Yeah, great. So listen, James, Dave, thanks ever so much for joining Av and me on the 6-Star Business Podcast. I really appreciate you giving up an hour of your days to join us. And it's over and out. Goodbye from her and goodbye from me. And we'll see you both soon. Bye.
It's been a pleasure. All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Another good conversation.
Oh, they're all good, aren't they? Honestly.
Yeah, they are.
I feel
I'm really
so
loving. No, sorry. There's
so
a bit of a lag.
We're both so excited. We just talk over the top of each other. I just loved how there was that synergy between them. Like Dave giving his example of 6-Star Business, and then James knowing that and living it as well.
That's what I was going to talk to as well. That the serendipity of the random assigning of which guests are on each episode brought us somebody who worked for a 6-Star Business and somebody who was a recipient of that 6-Star Business, and a reminder too, also, that because Dave spoke to the point that Hewlett-Packard definitely was a 6-Star business predominantly because of their high trust culture. Yes, but are definitely not 6-Star now, and it kind of just was a reminder to me that a 6-Star business is not something on a state that you just achieve and you tick the box. No. It's an ever evolving, ongoing process. To continue to reach the bar, which is always that little bit further ahead, is that constant improvement, evolution.
Absolutely. It was brilliant. So look, that was great. I'm always energized after these. I always want to listen to it again, and hope that our listeners heard that episode and absolutely loved it, and took away from it everything that we did.
Got some gold out of it. Yeah, there's a nugget. There's at least one nugget in every single episode. It's just on us to find it.
Exactly.
How can people connect with us, Av?
They can send us an email or is it contact@6starbusinesspodcast.com? Did I get that right? No, podcast@6starbusiness.com. I think we have a few email addresses, let's face it. People can contact us through many ways. There'll be a link in the show notes underneath here and an email address, so get in contact that way. And don't forget to, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. There'll be a button to leave a review, and we really appreciate those reviews to help us be seen by more businesses and more people who want to excel and improve.
Absolutely. Like and subscribe, as they say. So, thank you, dear listener, for being with us again for another episode. Av and I will be back here, same time, same place next week with another episode of the 6-Star Business Podcast. Until then, have a 6-Star week. Bye.
Bye.